I found tiny dungeon that can only produce metal slime 59 to 66. Chapter 59, NDA. What is this? Non-disclosure agreement. NDA. Non-disclosure agreement? Yes, it is used in many contract and joint agreement, but we're going to use it in order to keep the secret between the three of us. Aisha explained the content of the document in detail while explaining the terms one by one. This is prepared by an official lawyer. If we leaked your secret to the third party, we have the obligation to pay a remuneration for you. Obligation, huh? By the way, the amount of the compensation is 100 millions. Oh, 100 million? Seeing the shocked Yuma, Aisha's line of sight scanned her room. This place is my property. The building is worn out, but the land itself is quite a valuable asset. Combined with my savings, the amount is exactly 100 million. Moreover, Aisha took the ballpoint from her chest pocket and pointed at the president. Hey, sign it already. The fuck? Me too? Of course you are. Are you going to reveal his secret? Like hell I'm going to do that. I ain't the kind of bastard who can't keep the secret of the other. Then you got no problem with this NDA, said the president. He then took the ballpoint from Aisha and gave his autograph on the NDA. You bring your seal, right? Is this the reason why you told me to bring my seal too? The president reluctantly took out his seal from his pocket and stamped on the document. With this, none of us are going to reveal your secret to the third party. Properly speaking, the exception can be included when it's related to crime, but I'm not including that into this NDA. In short, you have no disadvantage at all in this NDA. If you doubt it, I don't mind if you bring back this document and confirm it with your lawyer. No. That's a bit. Yuma was worried since this matter inflated into a scale beyond his imagination. He knew that he could trust the president, and as the president's acquaintance, he naturally felt the same way for Aisha. But it didn't mean that they absolutely wouldn't reveal his secret. Actually, I don't think that my secret is a pretty big deal though. Are you sure that this isn't some sort of misunderstanding? Seeing Yuma still trying to feign his ignorance, President Kanzaki heaved a sigh. Yuma, I've told you to use magic with the box that I show you back then at the company's office, right? Why yeah, I mean, you told me that tool will allow me to use magic outside of the dungeon. So I tried, but that's a bulky, It's just a somewhat fancy ashtray. It doesn't have such an effect. Though I feel bad for lying to you, I do that to confirm Aisha's statement about your abnormal mana index. But I didn't expect that what she said to be correct. And know why. That's why just give it up and tell us about your secret. Though I lied to you the day before yesterday, I will absolutely protect your secret this time. Your secret will be known only to the three of us. Maker and Tanaka-san won't know about this matter either, the president declared without averting his gaze from Yuma. Sure enough, the president is a man of his words. Aisha-san also prepared this document just for this occasion to show that she's completely prepared. I don't want to tell anyone about this matter, but can't be helped, I guess. I understand, but I beg you to not tell any soul about this. You got my words. Naturally. Yuma heaved a sigh and then readjusted his sitting posture. The truth is, this matter began around the summer 2 years ago. Around the summer 2 years ago. Aisha leaned her body forward. Her eyes were glittering with the color of madness. Seeing her made Yuma wondering if she was alright. I found a hole in the corner of my house's garden. When I looked into the hole, I found a monster inside. Is it a dungeon? Why yes. Aisha mumbled something after that as if she was trying to digest Yuma's story. I see, dungeon in the garden. Does exist. There's a lot of precedent about dungeons appearing on private property. But then, dungeon in the garden, Yuma, can I continue my story again? My bad. Please continue. That dungeon is really small. Small? How small it is? The president who was sitting beside her was dumbfounded seeing her interrupting Yuma's story again. The depth is around 1 meter, the size is around 1 tatami mat. TN, 0.9 by 1.8 meter. Wait a minute. I need to take a note about this. Aisha took out a memo pad from the desk in a hurry. After opening the memo pad and holding the ballpoint in her hand, she urged Yuma to continue. Yuma took a deep breath and started talking again. When I illuminate the hole inside. What's the shape of the hole? The shape. Let's see. It's a round-shaped hole, with a tunnel at the bottom of it. Yeah, just like shoes. Shoes? And then, inside that tunnel is the inside of hole made from soil, or a wall of rock? Oh, shut you P. The president had finally snapped and interrupted Aisha, who kept interrupting Yuma's story. Just shut up for now. He blocked Aisha's mouth and then looked at Yuma, ignoring Aisha, who mumbled something. Okay Yuma, now finish your story. Why yes. Despite being quite bewildered seeing the struggling Aisha, Yuma continued his story. When I looked inside the tunnel, I saw a metal slime. Metal slime? Both Aisha and the president's voices overlapped. Chapter 60. The Supreme Ability. New project. What is this metal slime you're talking about? Aisha asked curiously. Yuma then went on to explain about the monster, about the item drop which is magic ore, and about the dungeon which had suddenly vanished more than half years ago. I see. The rumored metal slime really does exist, huh? I see now. Aisha nodded delightfully. So, can you use the metallization ability that you acquire from the magic ore right now? Yes, no problem. Alright. You can show it to us then. Understood. Yuma then stood up from his chair and focused on his mind to activate the metallization. The next moment, his body from the tip of his hair all the way down to his feet transformed into a black steel. This metallization ability is really awesome. Surprised by the transformation brought by the ability, Aisha started touching Yuma's metallized body with an entranced look on her face. The president, who directly stood up behind her, was staring dumbfoundedly at Yuma. I see, this body is as tough as steel and yet elastic at the same time. I've been researching the Black Dungeon for so long, and yet this is the first time I see a magic ore which caused such drastic transformation. 5 minutes later, Aisha was still touching Yuma's body, which had already returned to normal, with the same enthusiasm as before. I see now. So, have you encountered any other type of monsters in that dungeon? There's only metal slime, but some variants with different color does appear. Variant with different colors? What does that mean? As I keep defeating the metal slimes, the metal slime with different color appeared, gold, red, blue, yellow, and green in turn of their appearance. I see. They does sounds like variant indeed. Aisha then continued to take a note upon Yuma's explanation in the memo in her hands. And what makes them different from the normal one is basically their color. Oh yeah, they're really tough nut, and because of that color difference the ability acquired from their magic ore is different too. The ability of their magic ore is different? Seeing Aisha's hand stop writing in the middle as she brought her face closer to him, Yuma continued his story. The red one gave me fire resistance. The blue, yellow, and green each gave me water, thunder, and maybe wind resistance respectively. Element resistance, huh? Aisha then stands up and walks back and forth as she mulls something. She seems to be thinking about something important. I see. Then the reason why magic hardly works on the monster of Black Dungeon is because of their resistance. Since that's the case, mumbly mumble. Ah no, excuse me. Aisha only snapped out of her own world when Yuma called out to her. Alright. Back to the topic. The first thing I thought of what I should use to defeat the variant slime was also through using some kind of fire and thunder based attack. And it did. It really worked on the monster of the Black Dungeon like it did on the monster of the White Dungeon. But it doesn't work that well for some of them because they have the elemental resistance. Well, that might be one of the reasons why they're keeping their distance before attacking. But if what you say is correct, then some monster does have resistance. Truly interesting. Yes. So, what about the effect given by the magic ore from the golden slime? Well, I'm not really sure, but the effect seems to be making the drop rate in Black Dungeon 100%. Huh? Yes. The effect is allowing me to get every magic ore dropped from the other colored monsters in the Black Dungeon that I defeated. What are you talking about right now? Magic ore? Yes. 100% drop rate? Yes. Are you serious? I am. Aisha looked up at the ceiling for a moment and started walking in a circle. Yuma and the president, who had no idea what she was thinking about, were equally puzzled. Aisha suddenly stopped walking, rapidly approached Yuma, and then grabbed his shoulder. She brought her face closer, looking at Yuma with a dead serious face. Really, are you serious about the 100% drop rate? Why yes, I'm serious. Aisha's current state had truly scared the SHT out of Yuma. Kukaku. If that's the truth, there will be tremendous progress in the research about the Black Dungeon. Truly the supreme ability in this world. The drop rate of magic ore is slightly lower than magic gem after all. A 100% drop rate is just like a dream comes true. Well, we can confirm about that later on. Right, Yuma-kun, eh? Yes. Although Aisha said herself that it was a supreme ability, for Yuma, it was just the skill to get worthless magic ore. Is that all variant of metal slime you see in that dungeon? Nope. The last monster that appeared before the dungeon disappeared was a huge metal slime. It should be the boss because it's super strong and I barely managed to beat it. A huge metal slime? Is it just because of the size? Nope, it can change form too. That's how I feel from the ability of its magic ore. Magic ore that can change form. Can you show it to me? Understood. Yuma invoked metallization again, and then followed by liquid metal transformation. He transformed himself into the figure of a gelatinous, gray-colored metal slime. He didn't forget to add a few feelers to his body. Like this, said Yuma as he turned around, only to see both the president and Aisha stare at him with a gaped mouth. Chapter 61, Lies and Instruments TN, New Project. No. This is a literal freaking monster, the president shouted with a dumbfounded look on his face. Wonderful, absolutely wonderful, Yuma-kun. Aisha on the other hand was squatting down with a beaming smile on her face, patting Yuma's body which had been turned into metal slime as if she was patting her dog. Truly interesting to think such ability would exist. Yes. Though feeling bewildered by Aisha's reaction, Yuma replied casually as he returned to his human form. Thus, Aisha took Yuma's hand immediately. The research about Black Dungeon will advance at rapid pace with your help. You absolutely have to go into the Black Dungeon with me, will you? Black Dungeon? But I hear that the entry to the Black Dungeon is extremely restricted. Hearing that, Aisha revealed a smug expression on her face. Then with a harumph she said, I'm one of the small number of researcher with permission to enter the Black Dungeon. But alone, I can't go too deep into the Black Dungeon. That's why I also have the permission to appoint any explorer to accompany me entering the Black Dungeon. So, there's no problem, right? Definitely. D-Minor will submit the request to explore the Black Dungeon. That's why you must accompany me at all cost, Yuma-kun. But I think the one who can decide that is the president. Yuma sent a glance at the president who had yet to recover from his state of shock. Kotaro, give him permission. You still owe me the promise to explore Black Dungeon from before after all, so you're going to come with Yuma. But there's no but. Think about how much debt you've had on me until now. It's time to repay them all. That's. Ignoring the speechless president, Aisha then looked at Yuma with a beaming smile on her face. Just as I promised, I'll keep your secret. Instead, I need your cooperation for my investigation. Don't worry, it's not a tough request. Well, I understand, I supposed. Well, does that mean the dungeon has vanished after you defeated that giant slime? Yes. How many days have passed since the first time you find that dungeon till it vanished? Around 413 days. I just checked on my note after I heard from the president and others about the elevator-type dungeon, so it comes to me that tiny little slime dungeon might be one too. Elevator-type dungeon. Sure enough, there's a rumor about that. Well, those rumor mostly fake though. Aisha smiled wryly, rubbing her chin as she looked at the window. On the other hand, the president looked at Yuma now. What the heck, does that mean the rumor is true? I mean, it sounds like a hoax. Why yeah. Aisha then called out to the bashful Yuma. I almost forgot about it, Yuma-kun. As promised, I'll give the detailed explanation about the result of your checkup. Why yes. Yuma straightened his posture when he heard that. Let's skip the hassle explanation and straight to the conclusion. Your mana has a property that makes it almost impossible to be measured. This might be the result of you subjugating special monsters, the metal slime and co. I see, now that makes sense. My homemade mana measuring tool can somehow measure your mana, but even that isn't perfectly measured. Currently, there's no real mean to accurately measure your mana, muttered the president with a dubious look on his face. But Aisha ignored him and continued on with her explanations. So far, the measured amount of your mana index is around 200. So much? Of course. Unfortunately, only my homemade measuring tool can measure your mana index for now. Contrary to Yuma, who raised his arms in joy, the president glared at Aisha. What's the meaning of this? You say that the Rasu. Aisha's elbow mercilessly sunk into the president's flank before he managed to finish his sentence. Aisha then grabs the president by his collar and drags him out of the room. What's matter? Don't worry, Just wait for a while, said Aisha to Yuma, who was puzzled by his two seniors' antics. Oi, what the heck with that mana index 200? That's a big fat lie. You fool, do I have to tell him the truth then? Do you know what will happen once we tell him the truth? The heck? What do you think he's going to do then? Hearing that, Aisha heaved a sigh. She folded her arms as she leaned on the wall. Try to think about it. What do you think Mitaka is going to do once we tell him that his mana is 460k? Realistically speaking, he'll just directly move to a bigger company. Okay, bigger company. But you say that only your mana measuring tool can measure his mana, right? Ain't that equal to him unable to prove his huge mana index? Too naive. Think about it. Just how much do you think the way to measure his mana is? The easiest way to prove that is to make him use magic outside the dungeon. You've told him how to use magic, right? What do you think is going to happen if he goes to the interview of a big company knowing about his mana index? He'll simply cause a ruckus, and the company will do anything and everything to measure his mana index. Preparing special mana measuring tool is a simple matter for big companies. Damn. That's too logical. Understand? You mustn't tell Mitaka the truth. He'll bring a huge profit for your company, and I get the best test subject. You absolutely must not let him go. Aisha's eyes were bloodshot, as if carrying madness inside. I'll kill you if you dare to interrupt my research on Mitaka. Why yes ma'am. Thanks to being acquainted for a long time, Kanzaki painfully understands that Aisha would really kill him if he was daring enough to tell Yuma the truth. Hearing that, Aisha revealed a nary smile and went back into the room with a light gait. Sorry to keep you waiting, Yuma-kun. Seeing Aisha acting soft-spoken like that, Kanzaki promised in his heart to never make an enemy of her. Chapter 62, Dungeon in Yokohama. Yuma and I will dive into Black Dungeon starting from tomorrow. Why are you in such hurry? President Kanzaki, who returned to the office, told Tanaka and Maker that he already received an official commission to investigate the Black Dungeon. You have investigated that place few times in the past, but why are you suddenly bringing Yuma there? Maker asked curiously. Kanzaki prepared to answer her with the answer that was prepared beforehand to avoid telling them the detailed situation. It's for efficiency. The younger Yuma, whose magical power still low, is the most suited one for this case. Seeing his daughter's expression, Kanzaki knew that Maker isn't truly convinced by his answer. But, I see. Physical strength is more important for defeating monster in that place. Why yeah. It's just as you say, Tanaka-san. Okay. Tanaka, who was sitting at his desk, stood up and trotted toward them. While Yuma and I go to Yokohama, Tanaka-san and the Maker will dive into the 20th floor of Blue Dungeon to gather Iolite H, the magic gem commissioned by the Isis Company. Understood. By the way, President, I actually doesn't want to pry too much into it since it's a commission from Aisha-san, but why are you willingly agreeing to it? That's previously. Their company investigation of the Black Dungeon had been postponed due to some reason. But since both Maker and Tanaka were aware of that, Kanzaki was troubled in how to answer the question. It feels like if I refuse her request again this time, she's going to kill me for real. I'm serious. Yeah, she might really do that. I mean, you always gave her your promise to help her investigation and neglecting it until now. She must be really pissed off this time. Why yeah. I understand. Leave the gathering of Iolite to Maker-chan and I. Thanks. Sorry for the trouble then. Kanzaki heaved a deep sigh of relief as he sat back in his chair. Upon a closer look, Yuma seems to have a pleasant conversation with Maker and Tanaka about the expedition into the Black Dungeon. Is he really the owner of the biggest mana index in this world? I hardly believe it even now. That alone didn't equal him being the strongest seeker in the world. But it literally allows him to use all 4 prime elements along with recovery magic, and still enough to push them to the highest limit. The current strongest healer in the world was a woman from India, Goroka Naidu. She was hailed as a messiah. They said that she could cure any sickness or injured person that was already on the verge of death. The people in her country called it God's miracle. But her treatment fees were ranging from hundreds of millions to billions. There was even a rumor that a certain multi-billionaire from somewhere paid her trillions, and her mana index was only 4,800. Some scholars even come up with a theory that it might be possible to revive a dead person if the user of healing magic has more than 10,000 mana index. I had no idea whether he really had 460k mana index or not, but If that was the truth, even if just around 100k had already been colored, the rest was more than enough for the other magic. When that happened, he literally had become a godlike existence. Was that even possible? I guess this exploration was the best chance to check up on that. The next day, Yuma and the president's figure could be seen in Yokohama Station. The black dungeon that appeared in the form of cave-in near Yokohama Station, the downtown, became a huge news due to a huge number of victims caused by that incident. The country quickly mobilized its authority to build the facility to seal the entrance of the dungeon from the general public and announced the event as the mark of national disaster. Now, the grim fortress built by the Ministry of Defense was enshrined as a landmark in front of Yokohama Station. It really is in the middle of city, muttered Yuma as he looked up to the huge building before him. Well, inside is the dungeon that caused the biggest damage in Japan after all. The president who spoke from behind Yuma had also looked up at the building. Oi, what are you waiting for? Come here. Aisha walked casually toward the entrance of the building as she waved her hand to them. She was apparently in high spirits, which was quite obvious from the huge rucksack she carried on her back. Her current appearance was the exact opposite of the image of her as a gloomy researcher. You're going to enter the dungeon too, Aisha-san? Well, that's the reason for my investigation after all. Aren't you going to become a hindrance? Stop being so blunt like that. Apparently, their job was clearing the floor of the dungeon while escorting Aisha. The president nodded with a rather unpleasant look on his face. After passing the exaggerated concrete door and entering the building, the JSDF personnel with uniform came to them, asking them to finish their procedure registration. Aisha then showed her entry permit and appointed Yuma and the president as her escort. They were then guided by the JSDF personnel further inside. After passing who knows how many huge concrete doors, they had finally arrived at the dome-shaped building. In the middle of that dome-shaped building was a giant hole. Chapter 63, Showdown vs. Cyan Armored Dumpling Insect. Welcome to Japan's Black Dungeon, the Abyss, said Aisha jokingly with a mischievous smile on her face. Abyss? Is that the name of the dungeon? Though it wasn't a rare case to give a name to a deep dungeon, Yuma never heard about a dungeon in Japan having a particular name. I named it just now. It gave you a sense of belonging, right? Hearing that, the president and Yuma heaved a sigh as they followed Aisha as she happily descended the staircase. President, you've been visiting this place few times in the past, right? Yeah. 3 times to be exact. The trio were currently exploring the first floor of the Black Dungeon. It was a cave with a rugged rock wall. The area had bad lighting, causing them to only barely manage to see the vicinity. It should be a deep dungeon, and yet, the phenomenon called dungeon mirage didn't happen in this place. Faster, guys. The sun will set soon if you don't walk faster. Aisha walked in front of them in high spirits. Yuma was really bewildered to see her act like that. Is it really okay for a non-explorer like Aisha-san to walk on the front like that in the dungeon? Well, we're still on the shallow floor after all. There's no dangerous monster around this area, but... The president tapped his hexagon staff on his shoulder as he grumbled with a bored look on his face. Yuma was also holding on to his pickle as he looked around restlessly. The only thing he saw was a dumpling-like insect that crawled on the ground. It was bigger than a normal insect, but it didn't seem to be that powerful. Till which floor we're planning to dive today? According to Aisha, we're going to dive until the 10th floor. How powerful are the monster in there? Well, rather than strong, it's more like the majority of their Black Dungeon monster is tough. I mean like their body made of rock or metal. The president replied with a grim look on his face as if he recalled something unpleasant. By nature, fire and thunder magic should be working better against monsters in this place, just like the White Dungeon. By the way, there are also many monsters which are resistant to those attributes. They have tough bodies and are resistant to magic. That's why you need to be quite skillful to dive in the Black Dungeon. Not to mention that the dropped magic ore is worthless, and the drop rate is even lower than magic gems compared to other dungeons. In short, it's the worst dungeon, so that's why it's not popular. Now I know why this dungeon is unpopular. But, why did Aisha-san fuss over such a dungeon? Aisha-san should be researching nothing but the Black Dungeon, right? This fella is an oddball. She's the only one who is researching the Black Dungeon. Take a look around carefully. Yuma looked around and saw no one but the 3 of them. It's truly deserted. Of course it is. We're the only oddballs who enter this place. Please do forgive me for dragging you into this mess. The president muttered irritatingly, and yet, He could only look helplessly at Aisha. Nevertheless, her research result about Black Dungeon is world-class. That's awesome. The government is still paying her even when that oddball hasn't made any breakthrough with her research. Ain't that already an awesome testament of her abilities? After walking for around 2 hours while talking with the president in a small voice, they arrived on the 8th floor. Well then, let's start from this place. Aisha finally stopped and turned around at Yuma. You can find a lot of weak monsters of different varieties around this floor. So Yuma-kun, I want you to beat them. Me? Yuma was really surprised by the unexpected situation. Yes, I have to confirm your 100% drop rate for now. Kotaro will act as your support. KKI, understood. Thus, Yuma had no choice but to look for a nearby monster. He found out in mere minutes that Aisha was right about the number of the monsters in this floor being much higher than the first floor. Among them were dumpling-like insects, worm-like monsters, or armadillo-like monsters. Yuma decided to start with the dumpling insect. He raised his pickle overhead, and brandished it. High-pitched metallic sound resounded as his pickle got repelled by the hard surface of the dumpling insect. It's so hard. Yuma was dumbfounded. It wasn't as tough as metal slime, but it was still tougher than he expected. As if the dumpling insect wore iron armor. What's the matter, Yuma? Got cold feet? You've to brace yourself. The president cheering him up. Meanwhile, Yuma kept brandishing his pickle again, and again. And yet, it was useless. The dumpling insect was still alive and kicking. Though it wasn't that fast, its tough body could make the pickle to slip. Fusike. Good grief. Step aside, Yuma, I'll beat it for you. The president approached the dumpling insect, and brandished his Heigan staff without hesitation. The dumpling insect crushed under the hexagon staff and turned into ashes right after. Look, it's easy, right? Indeed, the difference between their physical strength was obvious. When Yuma was admiring the president's strength, Aisha approached from the other direction. She grabbed the president by his collar and glared at him. Who asked you to defeat it? There's no point in this investigation unless Yuma-kun defeated it by himself, right? You're right. The president finally realized that he really was in the wrong this time. Chapter 64, Image and Transformation. Yuma then resumed his attempt to defeat the dumpling insect a few more times after that. Alas, it was also a failed attempt. Even when he changed his target to the earthworm-like monster, its tough skin could easily block his pickle again. He then tried the armadillo, only to encounter an even more hopeless situation. Huff, President. I'm so dead tired. What? Tired already? Get a grip on yourself, young man. The president shrugged his shoulders and picked up a dumpling insect. Yuma, I'll give this guy enough damage for you to finish them off. Yes, please do so, President. Yuma decided to agree with the president since he knew that the one who delivered the finishing blow was the one who got the most mana from the monster they killed. The president stepped on the dumpling insect and struck lightly with his hexagon staff. Crush. The insect ended up squeezed to death. You muscle brain. So you don't even realize that you can't even adjust your own strength? Sorry, said the president as Aisha strangled his neck, which made the situation quite comical. But this is a troublesome situation indeed. We met a stumbling block as soon as the experiment to confirm the drop rate of magic ore began. Aisha grumbled as she saw Yuma and the president's struggle. Yuma's lack of physical strength is worse than I expected. Really, young people nowadays. Yuma on the other hand was also feeling vexed since it seemed like the president used himself for the standard of a normal explorer, which actually quite a problem itself. My strength alone isn't enough to defeat it. Aisha touched her chin, seemingly pondering about something, and then her expression brightened right in the next moment as if she just realized something. Right, Yuma-kun, use your metallization. Metallization? Yuma was bewildered by her sudden suggestion. Yes, if two metals were to collide, the less tougher one would be crushed. And since no one else is in this place but us, you don't have to worry about your secret being discovered. Try it out for now. I see. Then let's do it. Yuma then clenched his fist, transforming his body into metal. His body color turned metallic black, and it probably won't hurt even if he struck metal with his own fist. That's really awesome ability, no matter how many times I see it. The president spoke in admiration. Yuma, whose mood got better after hearing the president's praise, caught a dumpling insect immediately. By the way, Do you know the official name of this dumpling-like insect, Aisha-san? Well, the monsters in the other dungeons might have their own name, but many monsters in the Black Dungeon don't have an official name. Personally, I called them dumpling insect, earthworm, and armadillo. Even Yuma ended up getting himself dumbfounded upon hearing that. He somehow got the feeling that the dungeon itself suffered from the same case, since they literally got called by colors. He then lowered his gaze at the dumpling insect beneath his feet. He clenched his fist and punched down at that insect. Though he had some expectations as the sound of metal clashing against each other resounded in the cave, the said dumpling insect turned out to be still alive and kicking. Triple AH failed again. He then caught the dumpling insect that managed to get away. Observing it, he saw cracks on the insect body, but his punch was still not strong enough to kill it. So it's really lacking strength, huh? Even Aisha looks rather dejected seeing the result. Now we can hardly confirm the 100% drop rate of magic ore, even though Yuma felt sorry for Aisha. He then tried to change the topic by looking at the dumpling insect, and right at that moment, he felt something click in his head. Alright, if that's the case. His metallic hand wobbled as he imagined the image of short sword that he was familiar with, and his hand really did transform into a short sword. He placed the dumpling insect on the ground and stabbed from above with his short sword hand. Thunk. Yuma's short sword hand sliced the iron shell of the dumpling insect as if it was made of tofu. The insect's legs twitched for a second before it turned into sand. Oh, ooh. Awesome, Yuma-kun. You did it, Yuma. The two seemed to be really surprised seeing how easily Yuma defeats the dumpling insect. Aisha hurriedly approached and touched Yuma's transformed right hand, observing it really carefully. I see. The slashing attack works better than the blunt attack if it's from tougher material. That makes sense. Thank you. But, the sword's blade isn't smooth. Is your imagination not strong enough? Yeah. That seems to be the case. You might be able to create an even sharper and smoother edge if you have a proper image. Aisha was grinning ear to ear as she spoke. It seems she became more and more interested on Yuma's body. At that moment, the president noticed something rolling under Yuma and Aisha's feet. Oi, look at your feet. Both Yuma and Aisha looked down at their feet and saw something hidden within the sand. It was a tiny metal ball around 1 centimeter in diameter. Chapter 65. Metal coating. It really dropped a magic ore. Aisha picked up the metal ball with a trembling hand. No doubt about it. It's a magic ore of iron element. Aisha was grinning non-stop as she looked at the magic ore in her hands. Foo. Things are getting more and more interesting. Okay then, kill. Let's kill all these monster. Yuma and the president ended up flinching back, seeing her maddening smile. Though they were quite scared of her, they knew that it was already impossible to stop her at this point. Having no other choice, Yuma and the president kept hunting monsters after that. For the dumpling bug, Yuma could kill them in one strike if he happened to hit their weak point, or around 2 or 3 hits if his attack missed their weak point. Though the earthworm-like monster could still move for a while after he sliced and diced them, they eventually died after he trampled on them. The most troublesome opponent of all was the armadillo one. It was tougher than Yuma's sword hand. No matter how many times he struck at the armadillo's shell with his sword hand, it just couldn't pierce through their shell. It seems the quality of his sword transformation was quite bad since he didn't really have a good image of the sword, causing its edge to be blunt. Yuma-kun, can you put coating on your pickle? Coating? Yuma frowned for a moment upon hearing such an unexpected suggestion. He already knew that liquid metal transformation had extremely wide range of usability, but he only come to realize that it might be possible to put coating onto his weapon too after hearing this suggestion. I'll try it. He picked up pickle that he dropped on the ground. He imagined his liquid metal flowing on its surface. Thus, the metallic gray metal started moving and covered the surface of the pickle. It took a few seconds for the entire surface to be covered by it. Done. Yup. The current pickle should have turned into a tougher version of weapon than the monster. Can you make the angle of the head part of the pickle steeper that to pick, and bigger? Let me to try it. The next moment, the metal liquid on the head part of the pickle started to move again and changed the shape of the pickle. The head part became twice as big as before and the sharp point became similar to a pickaxe. And since the base for that was pickle, it was easier for Yuma to imagine the shape. That's enough. Now try to hit the armadillo with that. Yes. Yuma raised the pickle overhead, and brandished it with its tip toward the armadillo. The tip pierced the armadillo's shell as if it was made of tofu since he gave it his all when he swung it down. The armadillo raised a death wail and then turned into fine sands. Yay! Now then Yuma, go and defeat all the monster in the 8th floor. Aye, boss. Yuma replied happily and went into a frenzy hunt with the president. Since there was a time restriction for metallization, Yuma cancelled his transformation every 5 minutes to be able to hunt as much as possible. That's why Yuma and the president were running all over the place to catch the earthworm or dumpling insect and gather them in one place for the sake of efficiency. After they felt that they gathered enough, Yuma used his metallization and exterminated the gathered monster along with his transformed pickle. The pickle, which weight and quality had increased due to liquid metallization, easily crushed those monsters. It was the most efficient hunting method so far, since even the hard shell of the armadillo could be pierced so easily by the transformed pickle. Yuma felt like he became a machine whose job was stamping down those monsters to death with a push of a button. And then, wonderful. So many Magic-Ores. It seems your 100% Magic-Ore drop rate is real. Wonderful. Aisha screams in delight as she throws the Magic-Ore scattered on the ground with gusto. Iron of dumpling insect, copper of the earthworm, chrome of armadillo. Altogether, there were around 40 of them. I've never seen Aisha-san look this happy before. Yuma then dropped pickle and sat cross-legged on the ground. He was sweating a lot. It seems today hunting really did tire him out. President, I'm so tired. No wonder, you defeated that much monsters in the span of a single day. After all, the president took a sports drink from his bag and handed it to Yuma. Thanks, said Yuma as he pulled the pull tab of the sports drink and bottomed up the contents of the can. He felt as if their refreshing drink seeped into his tired body. I don't even have the strength to swing pickle anymore. I think I'll have a severe muscle pain tomorrow. How pitiful. Me back in my youth can fight monster non-stop for a whole day. Time changed, President. The current trend is work-life balance. The heck is that work-life balance? Stop using that difficult English words. Though the president looked rather furious, maybe because he also knew just how much Yuma worked today, he also sat by Yuma's side. Well, I guess I'll forgive this much for today, but we still have 1 month to go. I'll be shouting at you starting from tomorrow if you become tired just as easily. Yeah, I guess I'll do my best in this entire month. Aisha was staring at the two who had such a conversation with a dumbfounded look on her face. What the heck you two are talking about? We still have to descend to the 10th floor after this and continue our hunt. The two exhausted men could only look dejectedly at Aisha, who said those words as if it was natural, without a hint of exhaustion on her face. Chapter 66. A lot of Magic-Ore. Yuma and CO then descended to the 10th floor and defeated around 4 metallic snake-like monsters and metallic centipede-like monsters before they returned to the surface. After coming out from the dungeon, the three of them headed toward the business hotel that they reserved beforehand. After checking into the hotel, Aisha went into her single room. Yuma and the president went into their double room to refresh their exhausted body and mind. I'm so tired. After coming out from the bathtub, Yuma pressed the compress on his body. He felt as if his whole body was screaming right now. Finally, he rested his dead tired body, sprawling up in his bed. Are you alright, Yuma? The president asked with a worried look on his face as he drank from the beer can in his hand. Exhausted. Are we going to do this every day, President? Well, that was Sparta. You'll get used to this pace in no time though. President might be a case since his body was so bulky, but my body isn't that strong, you know. Yuma fell asleep with such a depressed feeling. Well then, let's do our best today too. The next day, both Yuma and the president walked behind Aisha as they entered the dungeon with a weary look on their faces. Are we going till the 10th floor again, Aisha-san? Nah, we're going to 20th floor today. Yuma and the president could only heave a sigh upon hearing that. After descending until the 8th floor, Yuma defeated the monster just like yesterday. Since Yuma had a hard time moving due to his sore muscle, the president gathered monsters in one place for Yuma to kill in the end. In this way, they managed to collect the same number of Magic-Ore as yesterday. But just as expected, Even the president with his tremendous stamina ended up exhausted after doing so for half day. That situation kept going on for 1 week. After that, the three of them gathered a lot of magic ore while making numerous round trips between 10th 20th floor. When they descended below the 10th floor, there was a new monster type called Gila made from either soil, stone, or metal which he barely managed to defeat. And then, on the weekend night, the three of them gathered in a single room. Well, look at these. We have gathered lots of wonderful magic ore. Aisha placed a steel case loaded with a lot of magic ore on top of the table and showed the contents to Yuma and the president. This is iron, this is lead, this is copper, the other are chrome, calcium, aluminium, for a total of 421. Seeing the delighted Aisha, the president just gave perfunctory reply. That's amazing. Are we still going to gather magic ore even after we gather this much? When Yuma asked that, Aisha shook her head with a wry smile on her face. Nope, I'm going to the research institute at once and continue my research with parts of this magic ore. I see. What are we going to do next then? Can we take a rest during that time? Aisha looked at Yuma with a dumbfounded look on her face when the latter asked so. What are you talking about, Yuma-kun? You're the vital part in my magic ore's experiment. Why me? Yuma couldn't hide his shock hearing the talk that came out of nowhere. Because I need you to eat these magic ore for me to check the change in your physical abilities after you ate them. Eat all of these? May I ask how many of these I have to eat? All of them. All of them? Yuma received the greatest shock in all his life today when hearing those heartless words. He wasn't so insane as to think that he really will be alright once he eats all 421 of those magic ore. Yuma turned to look at the president, but the president leisurely drank from the can beer in his hand, obviously trying his best to avoid Yuma's gaze, which made Yuma realize that the president had abandoned him. Thus, Yuma tried to persuade Aisha to give up. But well, I don't think I'll be fine after eating all of these 421 magic ore. It's okay. It is safe to drink since they would literally be dissolved in your stomach. But well, the problem is my mana index, which only around 200. I will literally lost the chance to use magic if I ingested magic ore, you know. It'll be okay. The mana index of magic ore is really low. I mean, they're literally on decimal points. Not to mention that your mana index must have risen since you keep hunting monsters. You don't have to worry about your mana index allocation. I'm a pro in this department. But still, Yuma was really confused to see Aisha grinning ear to ear. He thought that it would be fine to eat around 10 or 20 magic ore. He was less reluctant to do so since he had already ingested Metal Slime's magic ore before. But like hell, I want to eat 421 magic ore. I mean, I can't help but worry about my body. It's okay, Yuma-kun. Probably speaking, I, as the one who gave this commission, own the retrieved magic ore, but giving it all to you doesn't seem too bad too, right? Well, you're right. But still, what would happen if I ate all of those? Will my body become like that of bodybuilder? Nope. You ate a lot of magic ore before and confirmed yourself that there's no such obvious change in your body, right? Generally speaking, the effect of magic ore is minuscule. Your metallization is just like exception among exception in magic ore's case. I see now. Moreover, I've already got Kotaro's permission for this. Yuma looked at the president the moment he heard that. Alas, the president averted his gaze. He sold me already. Yuma could only heave a sigh, knowing very well that the president couldn't bail him out of this since the latter couldn't go against Aisha.